My intention is to talk to you about extraterrestrials, which I call Ntis, non-terrestrial intelligent species, and about bugs. Because I have been watching these things and studying these things, and I recognize that perhaps the scariest non-human race in any modern video game would be the zerg. The term zerg rush has become something that even middle-aged men and women who've never played a video game know. Everybody knows what zerg rush means. The zerg have become iconic, an insect race that have a kind of hive mind, and so they don't value their existence. They just throw themselves in vast numbers at everything and destroy it. The recent adaptation of a very famous science fiction book called Ender's Game, a bug race, an insect race with a hive mind that the entire human species has to go to war with and is nearly destroyed by and saved by a young boy named Ender. For some reason, this terrifies people. And a giant race of super intelligent sharks, to me that sounds scary. Right? Flying octopuses, that would be scary. But no, the thing that people are freaked out about is big bugs. And there's two reasons this matters. One, in the very near future, you're going to meet some big bugs. There is an Ntis that will be in the future of humanity. And they are beautiful creatures, and I'd rather they not be responded to with such horror. And two, because I just watched a video by a guy who's brilliant, but clearly owned by various marketing entities and doesn't have much integrity, suggesting that the human race is becoming a zerg species. That most of us, we think on our own, but we don't think that much, and we have developed this huge hive mind, and the various filtering engines of YouTube telling us what to watch next, or Google giving us search results, or corporations telling us what's the best product to buy. That increasingly humanity's becoming a kind of zerg race. They're losing their individuality and developing a hive mind. And this, it provoked such a strong reaction in the comments. It was either, theories of taking over all humanity and wiping out their will by giving them some sort of hive mind, or, anger that you would dare to suggest that humans were bugs, and just lots and lots of violence. So the second reason is, with this video, it reminds me, and hopefully some of you, that I have been working with creating the sort of global human mind, the baseline that we can all use, that is sort of larger than any human and everyone's connected to. And a lot of this stuff creates fear and anxiety, that if we have some larger human mind, it's going to eat your brain and you'll just be a zombie doing what you're told. This is shadow propaganda to scare people away from the unity. And so I want to kind of sidestep some of that. And I thought maybe, since I've already made this sound kind of heavy and serious, I could do it by just talking about some of my experience with Ntis. Now, I know of two. If your standards are low enough, 3 hive mind civilizations in the entire galaxy. One is light years away from space travel, and the other 2 will never get there. That is, there is no hive mind species in your galaxy who travel around in ships and explore. And the reason for this is really simple. This is a reason your biologist could understand. Right? And the best example of it is, either a business sinecure or a crocodile. Right? Now you think back to when T-Rexes were roaming around stomping and roaring and things. And the closest thing there was to a human would be a mammal of some kind that was, smaller than a mouse. Just getting eaten by everything because they're too small, and surviving only by a kind of psychotic or sociopathic fecundity. They just breed in such vast numbers that they spread all over, kind of like bugs do now. Right? But see, when everything out there is going to eat you, even the bugs are dangerous. Your only choice is to evolve and change and grow. And in that time when human beings were these tiny, desperate, horribly horny mice, there's a good chance there were crocodiles or something very like it, floating around in a pond with their little nose humps and their eyes sticking out and the rest below water, just waiting until food came up and fed itself to them. They have never been challenged, crocodiles. And so today, you go walking your dog out in your backyard in Florida, one of those little yippy poodles, some crocodile's likely to come out and say, "Oh, you brought me lunch, thanks." And that crocodile's going to look almost exactly like they did back in the time of the T-Rex. This is what happens with hive minds, with bees, with ants. They become so successful. Now, I was in Costa Rica years ago in the jungle, and this vast biodiversity of animals and birds and monkeys and crazy stuff. People come from all over the world to birdwatch there. And I read a pamphlet put out by one of their parks, and I don't know if it's true because I never verified it, but they said in this pamphlet that somewhere, I don't know the numbers exactly, somewhere above 50% of the biomass, that is, of all living things, was made up of ants. Now, ants weigh almost nothing, right? You've got to have, 2 universities and a traveling marching band full of ants to weigh as much as a bird. That's a lot of ants. Ants are very successful all over the world. I was in Hawaii, up in the hills, saw these little tiny ants walking around everywhere, and I went down by the docks where these freighters came in from, Brazil or something, someplace, Chile. And coming up from the freighters, once you got into the freighters, all you saw were these black ants that were about twice the size. And as you moved further inland, you saw less and less of the black ants. But whenever you found the black ants beating the brown ants, the black ants were killing them. They were just coming in and taking over. They're ants. They were very successful. And the only thing that could compete with another ant was, another ant species, because they breed so much. This is why hive minds don't reach sentience. They're never challenged. They don't have to change and grow. They find a comfortable niche, and hundreds of millions of years later, they're basically the same creature. Maybe a little quirky bend here and there in their evolution, but no drive, no phylogenetic impulse towards complexification to survive in the face of challenge. So mammal species are much more likely to be sentient. It's actually rare to find an insect species that is sentient and traveling the galaxy. Reptiles also are uncommon. They evolve most often in worlds that are very harsh, very arid, someplace where even the reptile has trouble surviving with its thick skin and, its ability to go torpid and need very little food. So in these rough situations, there's a phylogenetic impulse that can drive the reptiles to survive. And so on these kind of arid planets, it can happen. And sometimes the world mind itself, as it evolves with the species, and this is way beyond your science, I'll just ignore it, but the world mind itself will decide this is the best species to help advance. And so it will guide the evolution of the thing. So I know of at least one reptile race that's evolved for that reason. But there are none. There are no bug borg races. There are no zerg, right? The evil races of Ender's Game. There are none of them. They don't exist. Yes? They don't exist because they can't evolve phylogenetically. This makes sense? Now what I want you to understand is you ain't done evolving. I know I can't use terms like phylogenetic potential and psychotic fecundity. And say ain't. Because, I sound like I'm not very smart. But that's okay. Too many people look back at the entire phylogenetic process and say all this evolution has happened to create us. We're the end point of evolution. You ain't. You're a step in evolution. And right this moment it matters because humanity is going through a major phylogenetic shift. They're becoming a different species right now. You never end. You always continue to develop. Yes? And your species, if right now it became a hive mind, would quit developing for the same reason that the ants and the bees and the crocodiles have quit developing. You would become very successful with no competition and no struggle, and you'd all become fat, lazy bees. And you'd never develop any further. So you are not going to become this because it is not effective in terms of long-term survival. And no matter what you think, you are still driven by long-term survival and development of the species. This is the nature of biology. So it's not going to happen. And anything that tried to do it, think of perhaps the robot race in Matrix, where they trap everybody in bubbles and feed thoughts into their mind to control their responses. Anything that tried to do it would end your phylogenetic progress. You would stalemate, you would stabilize. And so if anyone among you tried to say, step up and become an overmind and make everybody slaves, all of you would fight it. Your biology would fight it. They would be seen as a kind of disease. And the global scale immune system would begin to remove them because this isn't helpful. Right? It's not going to happen. Now, there is going to be a human overmind. Right? Now imagine that you read a book that you think is really cool, so you make some notes on it and share it with your friends. Right? Now imagine you post it on the internet, and 500,000 people around the world go to your page and read it and maybe give it a thumbs up or something. Right? What you've done is take your little bit of knowledge and share it with a vast number of people. And people don't care about that book, they don't go read your page. People who do, they go and look it up. Maybe you've got a book on planting orchids or how to play the Simpsons game. People don't care about that, don't look at your page. But the ones who do care about it, they go check it out. This is how the overmind works. Your human mind, what you think of as the mind, the first mind, stays you. The higher levels, as they begin to develop, they link together with others. And at no point in there do you lose your human mind. You're just basically jacking into a kind of internet. If you've got to solve some vast problem that takes a lot more brains than you have, you can link into the overmind and use the extra cycles of other people who are sleeping or otherwise not using it or just offering to share. You want to know more about playing the Simpsons game? You can log into this overmind and download the information you need. This is the way an overmind works. Only it's not just mind, it's also heart and emotions. When you're chaotic or emotionally out of control, you can link with this overmind and find the vast sense of stability of your entire species and use that to cause you, to help you to relax and come back to where you want to be. It doesn't make you do it. You can disconnect at any point and become as uptight as you want. But when you want that, it's there. Imagine having a really big family, like 12 brothers and sisters. Only not like most of the ones you've met, if you have ever met any. These people all really love each other, right? One of them has a hard day and they come home, and the others all say, wow, tell us about it. And they support him. They sit down next to him and hug him or, bring him something that they enjoy. It's that kind of thing. It's having a group of amazing people around you that support you. And in that family, you could say, no, I need to be left alone. You go to your room and close the door, right? Or you can accept the help of your entire tribe there. This is how the overmind works. And humans have been increasingly programmed by shadow elements in your world to fear this overmind, to think it's going to destroy you or control you. It won't, because that would take away your ability to progress. Instead, the overmind is a thing that supports and helps you and increases your ability to progress. In difficult situations, you can just download information from the overmind. When you're sitting in school and have a test, you can just download the entire book and get all the answers right. Right? So the entirety of education is going to have to change. The stupid way you teach your young won't be relevant anymore. So this is happening. Right? This is the overmind, and this is something that most of you will not tap into in your lifetime. Because it comes from the second mind, and more importantly from the third mind, and most of you simply won't evolve far enough to find that. You won't develop far enough. But for those who do, it's a wonderful thing, and it is what will cause the Ntis out there to say, you are no longer a bunch of savage barbarian monkeys. You have developed an overmind, you're a sentient species now, and we'll work with you. Right, so this is important. There is also a kind of undermind that Jung and others have talked about, the global subconscious. But until now, this sort of global subconscious has been a chaotic storm, a perfect storm, a stew of elements swirling around, and there's been no stability or comfort there. Only sort of images that you all share in your dreams and such. That, now that your world is finally healing itself, that will become a stable global subconscious you can all tap into and help to make you part of humanity and help you to understand the world and to get trees and animals in a way you never have, to understand weather, to care about your world and saving it from your destroying it. Right? And that is what I call the baseline. It is a powerful, stable, underneath thing that most of you won't even be aware of, but it will keep you stable and healthy. It's like the keel on a ship, the big, huge, heavy piece of wood on the bottom of a sailing ship that keeps the bottom down and keeps it strong. The underneath mind, the baseline, is like that keel. And it's not a scary thing. And it's not something to be frightened of. And all this propaganda about the Borg and hive minds and shit, it can just be tossed out the window. It is propaganda to keep you scared. The undermind, the baseline, is already there. And the overmind has begun. The human overmind has begun. It already exists, and some people are linking into it, and those who are most aware are feeling the call of it and reaching towards it, and those who are watching are sensing it. And it is what will guide humanity into this next wonderful stage of their evolution, of their phylogeny. Right, so for those of you who are scared of the zerg or of becoming the borg or one of these silly things, I hope that if you can at least listen enough to get past your bigotry and prejudice against anybody knowing this kind of information, that you can maybe relax a little bit and realize that there are no hive minds out there that will come and take over your world. They don't make it to space travel. That no species out there is going to evolve into a hive mind because it's immensely destructive. It stops you from reaching from the third peck up to the fourth. If you are cemented into that hive mind, it turns you into machines like the Borg. And no species would allow this, and none of the other species out there, because they're all nosy and butting in each other's business, would allow that to happen. Right? This is not going to happen. The galaxy isn't a place of warfare and violence and conquest, no matter what you want it to be. That's just humanity. In the galaxy, when you meet a new species, you learn to communicate, you share culture, maybe you trade, you interact, and you do so from a much higher place than the idiotic level of thinking that you currently work with. Right? Einstein, problems are not solved at the level of thinking that created them. You have to reach a higher level. Well, the interaction between species out there in your galaxy is from a higher level than your logical mind. And so there are no great space wars. There are no space marines. There are no warships or NCC 1701s firing photon torpedoes at Klingons or whatever. This doesn't happen. And in just a few years, this attitude won't exist on your world. The idea that it's appropriate to conquer and destroy, to blow things up, to prove that you're right, this will end. And as this happens and you begin to interact more with the entities who have been watching your world for a long time, you begin to evolve and change and understand that it's actually far more beautiful out there than you've imagined, and a whole lot safer. And you're not going to turn into a race of bugs with a giant bug mind. You're going to become something beautiful and amazing.